about the changes. These changes are current. I mentioned the Federal Reserve. This is way beyond what I ever dreamed could happen. Because I was there for a good many years, nobody was paying any attention, so I thought that's the way it would be forever. But no, the conditions in the country are coming about, and it's the fruition of those who academically have provided so much information for it. And the same thing is occurring with these endless wars. You know, I'm surprised, why do we put up for a war? The longest war in history, 10 years or longer. You know, when Eisenhower, when the country got irate over the Korean War, it was only 2 years. The war started in 50, by 52. He ran his whole election on, this war's stupid. What are we doing this for? So, but here we are, 10 years. How long are we going to do it? How long is it going to continue? And I think it's way too much internationalism. I like internationalism as voluntary trade, travel, freedom of movement, and all that. But I do not like the idea. I'm not much enamored by the internationalism of the United Nations and NATO and World Trade Organization and all these things. That's all government internationalism. That will not solve our problem. That's more government. We need, of course, less government. Discouraging that we fight these battles, we try to win votes, we lose the votes, and it just seems so futile. People say, well, I write my comments and he doesn't listen to me. And you know, you hear those stories over and over. But it reminds me of a story of a conversation that occurred shortly after the Vietnam War was over. We had a Colonel Summers who got together with Colonel Tu representing Vietnam. And the discussion was, how do we, just put this all behind us, and just sort of cleaning up the mess and us getting out of there totally and completely. And our colonel was still pretty bold. He says, and he was, wanted to get some reassurance. So he says to Colonel Tu, he says, one thing is, you never once beat us on the battlefield. And Tu stood there for a minute, thought about it, and says, Colonel, he says, you're exactly right, but it's also irrelevant. It's irrelevant if you can win or lose one battle, but you gotta win the war. So our freedom movement might not be winning all these battles, but we're going to win the war. Because we've had a taste of it, we can improve on it. We don't have to invent the gold standard, but we certainly can have a better monetary standard. We know what freedom is about. We have an act around freedom of any country, so we don't have to invent this, but we can do a better job and maybe have a better protection of individuals. So we can improve on this. We don't have to invent it, and it isn't like we have to say America is a mess and it's all their fault. We can pick up the good parts of America, the good parts of markets and property rights and contracts and the government. This is what we can do. It's available to us. It will not be nearly as difficult for our shift toward liberty as it would be, say, in a country like Russia, because they didn't have our traditions and they still have lost problems. But we have to get people confident that freedom really is the issue and understand how it works, because we have been taught for so long, freedom is okay, but don't carry it too far. Well, I would say freedom is freedom. Freedom comes from the fact that you are an individual, you get your life and your liberty from your Creator, and the government should protect it and never take it away from you. We are frequently criticized about, the economic policies and foreign policy, that we're going back to the old days of isolationism and the old days of the gold standard. But let me tell you, big government is very, very old. And big government and inflation and destruction of currency, that is ancient and based on ideas that are wrong. Those who criticize us who want a lot less government, they are the past, we are the future. Maintain a sense of curiosity. Not just that we want a better life and we want to be left alone and we want peace, but we have to be curious enough to know exactly the plain truth of economics and foreign policy. You're in a unique group. Most people do not come to political rallies. Believe me, they vote at the last minute and they look up and go, who wants to vote for today? So if you come to a place like this, you're in this small minority. So your responsibility is much greater. But the responsibility is also to understand the issues and not casually accept, oh, well, yes, the government says I have to do this, and the Federal Reserve System, oh, they're wonderful. They always take good care of us. And, and we also have to have a welfare system because we don't want anybody falling through the cracks. And also, well, you guys who want freedom, you're not humanitarian, you don't care about your fellow man. Well, guess what? You can't be a humanitarian without being for the free market, because every other one destroys people's wealth and causes poverty and unemployment. A lot of people will criticize and say, well, you still want too much liberty. You want people to make all their decisions for themselves. Yeah, I do. They make a mistake. Well, then they suffer the consequences. But what if I as a political, a politician, what if the politician makes a mistake? Is he suffering? No, he's probably protected and we suffer. So, we don't, we want to make all our decisions. We should have a right to spend our own money. What's wrong with that, first of all? It's your money, you work for it. Natural rights, if you understand the right of the individual's life and liberty, it should follow that you have a right to keep the fruits of your labor. They're yours, they're not the government. We also understand pretty well in this country that we have intellectual freedom. We're allowed to read books, even books about communism, very, very destructive philosophies. We don't burn the books and take them off the shelves, but we have religious freedom, and we're pretty good at religious freedom. Sometimes we see some things that aren't perfect, but basically we're allowed to pick our religion, we're allowed to pick no religion, and religion, can you imagine how many dangerous things have happened over the history of the world in the name of religion? But we don't say you can't have religion because there's a risk to it. And then you say, well, if you legalize all this freedom of choice, even on social matters, your own personal choice, how you want to run your life or what you eat, in a free society, you will always be able to buy a big drink with a lot of sugar in it. In a free society, you will always be able to buy and drink raw milk if you like to.